Բարի լույս, good morning, доброе утро. Եկեք մի հատ լավ քիչենք, բայց եկեք մի հատ լավ իրար ծափահարենք. Давайте поаплодируем вместе. Let's give a big round of applause to each other just to make this morning happening finally to us. Thank you very much. I'm super happy to be at this forum and during the second day and present very interesting panel discussions that we're going to touch base today. And as you know, we're going to have the panel discussions in two conference halls in parallel. So here in this wonderful hall, we're going to host the following topic: digitalization of the physical activity. The state makes business more transparent, reducing the reporting burden and avoiding paperwork. This is the main title of our panel discussion, and our moderator is Vardan Bagdasaryan, PhD, an associate professor from Manukyan Simon College of Business and Economics from the American University of Armenia. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a big round of applause to Vardan Bagdasaryan and invite him to the stage, and Vardan will introduce the guests to his panelists. Please, Vardan, join us here to the stage.
Good morning, доброе утро, Barry Luis. So I have the privilege to moderate this panel, and I will now present my colleagues who have agreed to present their views on the topic. So our first speaker will be Rafael Gevorkyan from the State Revenue Committee. Rafael is the deputy head of the SRC. Previously, he held also leadership positions in Ministry of Economy, so he's quite aware of where we're going and what we're trying to do. And prior to joining the public sector, Rafael was also working as in a private sector, including audit and assurance roles, specifically in Deloitte, Luxembourg. His professional focus spans tax transparency, international fiscal compliance, and custom modernization. Thank you, Rafael, for joining. Our next speaker is Mr. Avak Avanesyan, Deputy Minister of Finance. He has also years of experience in the public sector. He was one of the youngest deputy ministers, right? That's what we remember. He focused on institutional reforms at large, but I know that his passion and particular interest is public procurement, where he is trying to make things easier. All those who are engaged with public sector know that this is a painful topic, so Avak is kind of trying to make our life easier. Thank you, Avak. Our next speaker will be Kamo Karapetyan, Mr. Kamo Karapetyan, partner and the head of tax practice from Ernst & Young. His core competencies include tax consulting, corporate and personal tax compliance, transfer pricing, so Kamo knows about taxes from all the perspectives. He was also an active contributor to the development of the tax code, so for years he has been in the topic. Thanks, Kamo. And our last speaker will be Tigran Simonian, Deputy CEO from Agba Bank and Chief Digital Platforms and Technology Officer. So he is leading all the digital transformative initiatives at the bank, oversees the technology infrastructure within the bank, and he is also widely engaging with the broader tech startup ecosystem in Armenia. So Tigran will be in a position to explain us how the private sector sees the things developing on that side, in the aspect of digitalization of government in general, and with the emphasis on fiscal activities in particular. So thank you all, colleagues, for joining. I suggest the following format. So we're going to have like 1 hour in total. So I will go with 2 rounds of questions, and then we can have an open discussion if the time will permit. Otherwise, we will follow this approach, okay? So my first question would be to the deputy head Mr. Gevorkyan. So we know that digitalization in the taxes is what has contributed to the improvement of the services, right? So we all remember the drastic increase in the quality of tax services. So we would like to understand, for example, my particular interest is the following. So how you are trying to bridge that trade-off that exists between increasing transparency and then also reducing the burden for the taxpayers, because these things are seeming to be on the like working in opposite directions. So how do you see this role of digitalization in mitigating these controversies? But at the same time, I would like also your view on where we're moving with digitalization in taxes. Thank you.
Thanks for the question, and good morning to everyone. As it relates to transparency, that was the key pillar when already probably 15 years ago, the tax service started rapid introduction of electronic filing systems. At that time, filing was also possible through the paper format, but at certain point of time, back in early 2010s, basically the tax service moved to full digital filing system. Further on, the tax service introduced basically live transaction monitoring systems for the whole economy. They introduced centralized electronic invoicing and centralized cash register receipt service, which allows the government to see all the transaction with approximately, in certain cases it's live, in certain cases it's with very limited time lag. This kind of systems allowed us then to increase the use of digital services to the customers, to the citizens, to the businesses, in the sense that all the filings, most of the filings that are currently being done on the SRC platform, it has integrated pre-filing algorithm, meaning all the transactional data that we get during the month, we also use it to pre-file the reports. So the tax filings become somewhat easier for the businesses. Of course, there is still way to go. Earlier this year, we introduced new algorithm that allows us to do the filing of certain reports at a higher precision with very limited changes remaining to be made. And this continues. This year, we introduced also it was almost full introduction of declaration systems. And again, the pre-filing was one of the key things for the citizens, because when you open the declaration, personal income tax declaration, unlike many other countries, you already have pre-filed actual data that could have been changed, for instance, a month ago even, and still you would have the final data once you open your declaration. That is, I think, a very important milestone that we were able to achieve. And when I was looking through international experiences in different countries, this is not something that every country has, especially the developed countries where they have these legacy systems. Implementing this kind of holistic pre-filing and transaction monitoring systems is very hard. And lots of developed countries, they don't have this kind of systems. So basically, I think it's important to appreciate what we already have. Having said that, of course, we develop our systems. And earlier this year, for instance, we introduced artificial intelligence into our risk monitoring systems with the help of AUA and certain team from locally and from MIT as well. It was possible to introduce an artificial intelligence models into our day-to-day work, into our risk assessment. So all this allows us to move forward and make the tax administration not just more efficient and transparent, but basically as much as possible contactless, meaning without direct comprehensive audits, visiting the audited entities, but rather basically off-site. And I think this is important from the tax administration perspective. This is important from transparency perspective, from corruption risk prevention perspective. So I think all of this is what should drive us in future years as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So my next question would be for Avak, and I know that we all, like, especially after introduction of the personal income tax declaration, we all somehow interact with the taxes, but not everybody is interacting with the procurement, right? But digitalization of procurement is highly connected with the taxes, because it's all about prices, basically. So like in a procurement system, you're just trying to procure with fair prices, but the information of fair prices is available at the tax authorities, basically, because they observe all the cash receipts, all the invoices in the country, all the custom declarations. So I was thinking whether there is a connection between these two systems, but in general, the digitalization of the procurement, how do you think that where we are and what we can expect to see, like, in the nearest future? Thank you.
Thank you. Well, it's great that few people interact with procurement, otherwise there would be marches in the streets. Because unlike taxes, where you're basically performing your civil duty, procurement is competition. And the problem is that the more people compete, the more disgruntled people you get, because there can be only one winner. So whoever loses usually, and especially in Armenia, it's not I lost because my proposal was bad, I lost because the evil forces, the law, the prime minister, whoever, but not me, was wrong. But the funny thing that you mentioned about integration with the tax services, we were just discussing with Mr. Gevorkyan that, yes, there should be integration, especially on the level of, okay, who is the market leader now? Unfortunately, there are no, let's say, consistent market research in Armenia, and the only source of, let's say, information about who is the market winner is one, revenue, or, well, maybe profits, but revenue, I think, is better. But regarding digitization, yeah, procurement has been digitized in Armenia since, I think, 2010s. The problem is that the system wasn't updated since then. Well, the good news is yesterday we've concluded the tender for the new e-procurement system. It was quite a large one. We had 3 consortiums, one led by the Amazon Web Services, one led by Oracle, and one led by European Dynamics. I think the announcement of who won will be today, but the interesting thing about digitization in Armenia is that we digitized the paperwork. So there was no deep digitization of what procurement process is. Yes, like you submitted this, then there was a tender, then you sign the contract, and then it goes forward. That's what we did. The positives, there is a lot of, let's say, information about each particular contract. But if, for example, I, as a taxpayer, decided to do large-scale analytics and understand whether my cash is being used properly or whether it's being wasted, it's very hard to do because, let's say, yes, it is digital, but it is not machine readable. And when the system is not machine readable, it's very hard to, let's say, analyze general impact of the system. So in the future, I think the core of the future digitization is going to be machine readability. And I think digitization, yes, it increases transparency, it increases competition, if done right. If done wrong, you can lock in into a system which doesn't allow you to evolve. For example, what happened with us. A lot of things we didn't change in the law simply because of the situation with the vendor, which led to a situation that, yeah, we wanted to do something, but every new process was going into paper-based process because the system wasn't able to change. So again, 2010s, completely different approach to architecture than what we have right now. So digital procurement, yes, there should be, and there is actually some integrations with the tax service because, for example, if you're an Armenian tax-paying resident, you are actually submitting an invoice from your tax service basically program. I think Harkatus 3 or 2, what was the name of that one? But in the long run, let's say, deeper integration with the databases of tax service will allow us to make sure that competition is fairer. Because again, the competition is not everybody competes with everybody. Likes need to compete with the likes. If I want to do an audit of something, I want an auditor. I don't want 3 million people coming in and saying, hey, can I do an audit of the atomic power plant, please? I'm a very responsible citizen. Please allow me to. Otherwise, I'll claim that the competition is unfair. So again, digital systems increase fairness, increase transparency, and usually those two things, they increase the efficiency and effectiveness of use of public funds.
Thank you, Mr. Avanesyan. Now I suggest to look at this from the other side of the world. Let's see what the business is thinking. So my next question would be for Mr. Gamuk Arapetyan. And so from the business perspective, do you see that the businesses are ahead or are lagging behind the government in terms of digitalization? And how they view the quality, the services, and what is their feedback? So, and is this feedback loop working in a sense that how do you interact to convey your ideas or like whatever you have in mind with the government in terms of what they do in terms of digitalization?
Thank you very much for the question. Good morning, everyone. Actually, as already presented by Mr. Gevorkyan in detail, actually Armenia has already come a long way in digitalizing its tax and reporting environment, and that's very important. Particularly, we have electronic reporting system, electronic invoicing system, and many other electronic digital platforms, which, usage of which is like not an option but a must. Accordingly, from business, from practical perspective, I would state that Armenian business society, Armenian companies actually are well adapted to existing digital ecosystem. However, I would mention that although everyone is like adapted, the digital maturity of different types of companies, especially depending on their size and structure, significantly differs. For example, like if we talk about major large companies, of course, those are quite well digitalized. They have highest level digitalization. They are using ERP systems, automating their business processes, creating integrations between tax reporting, accounting, operational process, etc., which of course increases their efficiency, data accuracy, etc. But what issues they face actually from practical point of view, I would say that I see some limited possibility of integration between their internal systems and systems operated by the state, particularly tax authorities. The next group of companies are medium-sized companies. Although they are usually not using like complicated ERP system, but still though they are like relying on local accounting solutions, which again provide them quite high level of automation, but the issue is more or less the same as for large companies. Like again, integration issues. Next group of companies, I would say is like a group of small and mainly micro companies, and where I see the greatest challenges actually. Because of mainly because of the affordability, accessibility to invest like in availability of resources, proper resources to invest in advanced technologies, even in accounting softwares, etc. And for this group of companies, I think it would be very beneficial to create even some simplified digital platform which can be used by them, can be affordable for them, and used to at least automate certain basic tax and accounting functions, which of course will help them to significantly decrease the manual work. Of course, Mr. Gevorkyan mentioned that there are the tax authority is doing as much as possible to pre-file tax reports, etc. Of course, those are all these are welcomed, but still this group needs a certain level of help. Next factor which I'd like to highlight again from business perspective is, I would say this is the technical readiness on the tax authority side. As I mentioned, like we have quite high level of good level of digitalization, but still we are facing certain issues. For example, time to time, especially in certain deadlines, we are having some system shutdowns, like overloads, etc., which of course creates issues for taxpayers. However, as far as I know, the system is being addressed at the moment or already resolved. I don't aware fully. However, this is quite this is existing issue, and of course this is it is very important for tax authority to continuously develop internal systems, etc., to ensure like reliability and stability of the system. And to summarize, actually, I would say that Armenia, in fact, yes, we can fix that Armenia has built quite strong digital environment, and the challenge today is not like starting digitalizing process, etc. It's about like deepening integration. It's about maintaining system reliability and stability. It's about ensuring accessibility for different layers of the economy, different taxpayers. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kamo. And last but not least, Mr. Simonian. So we know that, at least from user perspective, when we look at the banks, you seem to be at the frontier of the digitalization and fintech, etc. And then you interact with the government, and you will also kind of be in a position to help your customers to interact with the government. Let me explain what I mean. So we will be all filing these tax returns, and we would expecting, for example, the banks to help us with this process, because some of the information about our incomes is within the banks. So I was thinking whether you can tell us what is happening from that point of digitalization, so helping us to work with the government, and also if you can tell us what is happening between the banks and the government that we don't see in terms of digitalization, but which kind of either helps you or you see some challenges in there. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a tough question. Good morning, everyone. Basically, from my perspective, banks and financial system as a whole today is co-architecting the digital transformation of Armenia. For example, last year, 10 banks and 2 mobile operators created a joint venture called IMID, which is the National Trust Service provider of electronic identity, digital identity, and electronic signature, which is the backbone of the digital state that we are creating. This is the first component that we need to have. The second thing, when it comes to the interaction with the public sector, especially or particularly with State Revenue Committee, there is another thing that needs to be done, which is built currently in cooperation with State Revenue Committee and Information Systems Agency of Armenia. We are working on building a digital bridge between the private sector and the public sector. So this digital bridge is built on several key components. First, that the data exchange with this bridge should be super secure and based on public infrastructure. The second, the data that travels between the private sector and the public sector or the government should be with the user signed consent. So the data belongs to the citizen or to our customer, and the citizen should sign off that this data travels from the bank to the, for example, State Revenue Committee. Yeah? When we are talking about digital, so we're building this relying on the electronic signature. So it should be unquestionable whether the citizen gave its consent. Yeah? And the third thing, of course, is the customer experience. So this should be seamless. We are trying to remove all the scrutiny in the process. So basically, this is the infrastructure that we are building. Yeah? So this will allow, of course, to scale the digitalization because we have already the digital platforms in place used by hundreds of thousands of citizens and customers. And by building this trusted environment and by acquiring the customer consent, of course, we can end-to-end digitalize this process. So I think that this we will have in the coming months.
Thank you. Thank you very much for our speakers for the first round of questions. So as you noticed, I was trying to create a conflict between the public and private sector, but I somehow failed. So I will now go for the second round of questions, hoping to achieve that, that result eventually. And well, we talked mostly about like positive sides, but I think it's more interesting to talk about problems and bottlenecks and challenges that we're facing, because that's how we can somehow uncover interesting hidden like problems. So again, I will go with another round of questions in the same order. And my question to Mr. Gevorkyan would be, where do you see the main challenge? And I would like to like highlight three things that come to my mind. First is the behavioral changes that should be occurring within the population, but also on the side of the tax authorities. In a sense that if you are moving into the world of AI, you mentioned that you are going to implement or you're already implementing AI solutions. It means that you are moving more from the deterministic world to stochastic world. So everything is in terms of probabilities. The citizens are not always reacting in the way that you expect. Like we saw not that high engagement with respect to submitting the tax returns. And technologically, the amount and volume of data is going to increase, I guess, exponentially if you are going to do what you have in mind to do. So all these three are challenges. But if you can elaborate on this and maybe add something that, again, we don't see, but you, from your daily work, you see what are the problems in this process.
Thank you. Again, here I think we have certain changes that we need to make internally as a government and as a state revenue committee, and certain changes within the society that we need to take into account and adopt. Artificial intelligence is real. Already we are speaking about AGI, and in certain cases we can see that the certain LLMs, the large language models, they perform at the level of already college graduate, or in certain cases even a PhD. And the daily tasks that took a lot of time from us is completely changing. And I personally use quite a lot on different topics. And here again, we encounter various challenges about ethics, about the use of data privacy, confidentiality, etc. So these are new set of skills, competencies, and also challenges that we need to understand and encounter. But first of all, for that, we need to change internally in terms of mindset, in terms of how we see public service and state service developing, and how we recruit, how we train our people. And that's why already last year we've started a large HR reform in State Revenue Committee, which started as a simple process of background checks and anti-corruption effort, but now it's more about driving excellence, efficiency through introduction of OKRs, KPIs into our day-to-day activities, and transforming digitally the way we approach to various HR processes, including recruitment, performance management, learning development, etc. Unless we are able to shift our mindset at the level of leadership and also at the level of organization to bring these positive impacts from developing world in terms of AI, I don't think we would be competitive in upcoming decade, let's say. In past decade, as I mentioned, various reforms have been done, and in certain cases we were at the forefront of technology. In upcoming decade, it would be much harder because the challenges are different, and we need to adapt to those challenges very rapidly. We have various challenges in terms of data usage as well, in terms of scalability of our IT infrastructure, and as Kamo already mentioned, from time to time we have certain downtime at our services, and the simple reason is that the data grows exponentially. We try to leverage that data in our administrative efforts as much as we can, and that needs obviously more computational resource. And here comes the dilemma of whether we further expand our in-house capacities, or we utilize public clouds, hyperscalers, etc. And utilization of the cloud itself brings whole set of new challenges, especially in the current world where we see deglobalization and regionalization of various interactions. And within this setup, you need to make sure that your critical services are available to your citizens, that the data privacy is maintained, the cybersecurity is intact, and at the same time you are able to provide the quality service that is expected from our citizens. And if you need to invest in public infrastructure, then we certainly need to make those investments as fast as we can. At the same time, we are already, of course, investing every year. I think we're spending more than around $1 million USD probably in our digital infrastructure, upgrading our security, our services, technology, etc. And we need to increase this spending as the way I see it, because the data is massive, it's abundant, and if we want to increase the service delivery level, then we need to invest in our people, infrastructure, software, etc.
Thank you. Thank you. So Avak is from Ministry of Finance, but I don't think that he's dealing with the budget, right? Because otherwise you can help SRC with providing more budgetary funds for digitalization. My question to Avak would be a bit different. So I know that you have been trying to promote this new platform for years already. And I guess you have seen many solutions, many functionalities. So if you were unconstrained in terms of funding, what would you suggest to implement in Armenia? Like your dream solutions existing or about which you are thinking that can somehow like improve this pace of digitalization. So I know that these are difficult questions. That's my professional like problem. I usually ask a question to students, so that's why.
Is this working? Yeah, okay. The simple answer is just throw it into ChatGPT and always use ChatGPT for everything and anything. That's the best thing. If I was just completely unconstrained of what I do and with like, any concerns about data security and personal data security, just throw it there, it will give you most probably better solution than an average civil servant. But I'll go into procurement. The main problem from the point of procurement in digitalization and also use of AIs is vendor dependence. Unfortunately, there is no country. There are some countries that claim that they've solved the vendor dependence. When you talk to them outside of the general, let's say, public like this, they say, actually, we are quite dependent on the vendors. Well, there are actually two that have started to do something new. It's Netherlands and Singapore, which they've started to create artificial redundancies in their vendors. So basically, the same system is being maintained by replicated in two places by two different vendors. The hope is that if you have problem with one and they are both operational at the same time, I don't know how exactly they do it, but that's implemented in both their treasury and procurement systems. The same problem will be with AIs. We will be, the moment we start to heavily rely on AIs, there will be heavy reliance on this particular tool. What to do? Well, in the current world, there is no way to not rely on anything. So the more people and the more systems you rely on at the same time, the more is the probability that even if one fails, you'll fall back to the other. So this, let's say, use of multiple toolkits is a new challenge, and how to construct procurement processes in a way that we don't get locked in. But at the same time, we select vendors fairly. Mr. Gevorkyan has mentioned a very important thing about change of the mindset. So in procurement, I think this case will be interesting for you, Mr. Bagdasaryan, because in Italy recently there was a very interesting case of use of AIs in grants. So in grants, usually what happens is that there are multiple winners, and then the minister, I think, of education was selecting the 2 or 3 best ones, but there were a lot of losers. And there were constant complaints about, oh, the selection was wrong, I should have won, and stuff like that. What they changed, they introduced a digital tyrant, they call it. Basically, it was a randomization program, which was just randomly selecting who won. After there were like 10 companies, 3 should won. Complaints dropped by more than 60%. So when it's a random tyrant selecting, no problem. When the tyrant is a physical person, now we have a problem with that one. Even if it's completely random, there is no fairness, it's just luck. If it's a machine, we are okay with that. I believe that we are like Italians in that direction, because when we are saying it's the shaitan machine there which is selecting it, it's not my fault, it's always this bad computer that did it or bad algorithm that did it, it's easier for people to accept the decisions that they don't like. So probably, possibly, the negative thing could be that yes, a lot of decisions would be random, but the perception of fairness would come back. This is a very interesting situation because, yeah, on one hand, yeah, randomness is not fair. It's random, but people perceive it as more fair than if, for example, me or Mr. Gevorkyan were selecting it. So in procurement, there will be a lot of changes, I think, in the future, and especially on the contract management side, especially in use of AIs and augmented reality. Because, again, right now, corruption, due to digitalization, it went from tendering and planning into contract management, because contract management is still not digital. Yes, the contract is signed digitally. Yes, you can see the performance, but what the hell was actually delivered, you have no idea. If I say that 10 stacks of paper were delivered, unless there is a deep investigation of what happened, 10 stacks were delivered. Currently, I think there are some programs like which utilize meta glasses and everything else for contract management, and I think, especially in public procurement, we can go there. Yes, we've introduced laws, we said that civil society can come and participate in public procurement management, but civil society can't be anywhere. Right now, there are 15 organizations that are performing watchdog functions, but there are 100,000 contracts. We can't have 100,000 people standing over every contract. Okay, who is going to guard the guardians, right? So in this case, if there is an augmented reality program and there is a requirement that when you're performing contract management, you need to turn on the sensors, put on the glasses, get into the server, yep, that's what's going to happen. What is the negative of that? Well, what if something happens to the program? Then you will have to roll back to the original one. And regarding the budget, well, there is no money, but please hold on. That's the same answer that both Mr. Gevorkyan and I get. Again, I'm the treasury. I transfer the cash, but then I don't decide who the cash gets transferred to. So I have the same grumblings as everybody else. I'm the special kind of Ministry of Finance which doesn't have the money. So yeah, I don't think I answered your question, but
oh, you did. Actually, it was interesting for me to hear that people agreed to random random allocation. So what I usually do, I say my students, if you want, I can give you random grades, like randomly distributed. And of course, those who agree are the ones who don't deserve the grade, which means that in this case, in Italy, 60% of people were just not deserving the grant. So that's why they agreed to the lottery instead of being chosen. So, but that's a good point to find out those who do not deserve. Thank you. My next question to Kamo would be, like, you work in a Big Four company, like we call it Big Four because it's big all over the world. And I guess that in your practice all over these years, you have seen some solutions which you might say, okay, wow, this is great. If we had this one, would help us a lot. Or you might have some like systems like tax compliance systems, APIs, any technological things that you have encountered and you think that that can be beneficial. So your thoughts on that, from your experience and dreams as a private sector representative.
Thank you very much. Actually, there are many advanced global practices which could be somehow adopted and used in Armenia. And I'd like to mention, and I'm glad to mention, that many of them are actually implemented in Armenia, and Armenian tax authority is intensively working on implementation of this kind of novelties and advanced approaches. For example, what was like very interesting for me, I noticed that in certain countries, in UK, if I'm not mistaken, I met that practice. Like they created certain APIs, open API ecosystems, which like directly connect with taxpayers' accounting systems and ensure real-time reporting, almost real-time reporting, and there with like excluding any manual errors, compliance, etc., etc. This is like quite interesting practice, and of course I'm sure tax authority is working intensively on that direction. Like the very similar thing is like the profiling approach, which is implemented by the tax authority at the moment in Armenia. Next, very important and interesting thing which I like to mention is like integration. Again, integration, about which I already talked in my previous topic. Actually, this is endless. Actually, and this is of help to all stakeholders, especially taxpayers. Actually, there are countries where propose quite high level of integration between their internal accounting systems, payroll systems, and systems operated by tax authority. And the idea is like once a transaction is recorded, for example, in companies' corporate accounting books, actually the tax implications of that transaction are reflected automatically in tax authority systems. Again, this is something which is at least partially implemented in Armenia, which is like great, actually. The next is risk-based and data-driven administration based on advanced technologies and AIs, which again, I'd like to mention that Mr. Gevorkyan in his speech already told us that there are significant improvements and works done in these directions. Just this riskiness criteria, the riskiness, this is actually implemented in Armenia already for a long time, but this is something which needs to be revised, updated periodically to reflect time changes, changes in tax environment, general in economy, etc. So for me, as a representative of business, other side, actually is very important that tax authority try to use information that already which already received from different sources, electronic reporting system, other systems, and actually not like load taxpayers with additional reportings, like not request the same information in any other format which tax authority already has. For me, this is like very important and conceptual thing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kamo. Just to share with you something that I came across. So sometimes I take off the head of professor and put on head of consultant. And recently I was talking with a colleague from UK. And from large companies, they were telling that in UK, you need to have tax compliance units within your organization. And your tax fine changes depending on whether you have the tax compliance unit taken care of, correctly calculating tax obligations or not. So the burden of calculating correctly taxes is doubled in terms of, so you have to do that, but you also have to have an internal system so that you make sure that you have taken all the care to pay taxes correctly. This is for large organizations. And then this is also done with like digitally interacting with the government and using AI, et cetera, et cetera. So this can be also an additional point into what Kamo was mentioning. Thank you. And last but not least in this round, my question would be to Tigran, again coming back to banks, right? And we see that really, as you mentioned, you are hand by hand working with the government, trying to help with these digitalization processes. And I would like to hear something about the data protection and data privacy and this data security, and whether you share these experiences with the government. So because you are exposed a bit more than the tax authorities, your interactions with the multiplicity of clients in multiplicity of ways. So here you might have a bit of, let's say, higher exposure in terms of risk rather than tax authorities or procurement system, but you might also have lessons to teach. Maybe you can share some tips on that, what the government can do if you think that you are in a position to do that, of course.
The last thing I want to do is to teach the government. So basically, banking is based on trust. So if your customer doesn't trust you as a bank, you simply don't have any customers. As I mentioned in the answer to the previous question, what we are building now is the digital trust ecosystem. First with digital identity, electronic signature, and then when it came to, for example, to declaring your revenues, yeah. So, of course, government wants access to the data from the banks, from any other companies. But what we as a bank say, and also we have the shared understanding, is that in the center of this architecture should be the citizen. And data doesn't belong to us, data belongs to the citizen. And if we share the data, so we provide the technological means. Yeah, we can create an infrastructure, APIs, security infrastructure, etc. But at the end of the day, it's the citizen who shares his data. So basically in every interaction with, for example, in the scope of the project that currently we're in the middle of, we put the customer consent. And this consent should be via electronic signature. And I think that everybody in this setup is aligned with this. And as far as it is with the agreement of the customer, of the citizen, so we are happy to provide better customer experience. So from the other perspective, this integration also gives us opportunity to bring more added value services. Because imagine that at some point, and I think this is the vision of the government, at least it's our understanding with the interaction with government agencies, that at some point, government wants to digitalize 100% of public services. Because there is no other way for a country like Armenia to be efficient and be competitive in the world. Yeah? So when we remove the human factor, we can eliminate the corruption, and our colleagues spoke about that, unless you put an AI in the middle and this get corrupted. Yeah? So This also can happen. But if we eliminate the human factor, we can really have a lean and efficient government system. If all the public services are digitalized, so we as banks and also digital platforms that we have access, for example, as Agba Bank, we have more than 630,000 digital users. Like more than 91% of all our operations are in digital. So what we can we can help the government to scale this digitalization by integrating the public services to our platforms and also providing, for example, finance in a moment for SMEs. Government can have access to the financial data, but also we can have access to the tax data. And we build AI and ML scoring models on this data, and businesses can have access to the finance instantly. We can integrate live events, and etc. So, from my perspective is that we are building, and we need to build a digital ecosystem where all participants win. Both the government, the private sector, and of course the population, the citizens. Yeah.
Thank you. Just a follow-up questions. You said that it is going to be based on citizen consent. And in terms of consent, this is going to be an explicit or default consent? That's just curious as an economist, behavioral economist, I would like to know that. And the second question would be, again, I would like to understand, you say that we're going to build digital. If we do it with the government, we will have let's say, double effect because we will benefit from the government will benefit from us. So everybody seems to be winning, right? It's a win-win story, but I guess there will be also some losers, right? So some people who will be exposed to higher taxes, who will be exposed to less finance, etc., etc. So I guess that's what might be hindering or creating problems. So do you see that we are in a level of trust generally in our country so high that this can be achieved? So these two questions, if I may, as a follow-up.
I'll start from the last one. I think there is an aspect of cultural aspect of what you're saying. The aim or the goal of the financial system or the banking secrecy is not to, I don't know, hide income that is not legal. Yeah? So at least in banking regulation and what we have, we as a banks are obliged to follow up in our AML procedures and KYC procedures that all the funds that are deposited in a bank are legal and stuff like that. Yeah? So, but anyway, there is an understanding that the country is moving into this direction. And even the law on cashless payments that we adopted as a country, that in every sales point, there is the merchant cannot decline to customer to pay cashless or with banking cards. Yeah? This is a huge thing. It's like political will that we move into this direction, and of course it eliminates lots of gray stuff. So I think that in a mindset level we have to change something, but this is kind of a public benefit. It benefits all, and I think that we have a huge progress there, so this shouldn't be an issue. Another aspect of the problem, the downside of the digitalization, of course, is the cybersecurity risks. Because when you digitalize all the chain, cybersecurity risks, they rise exponentially. And there is a doubt, and we have to think carefully, both the government and we also as private sector, when we digitalize processes, are we doing enough in terms of cybersecurity to protect the infrastructure, to protect the data? Because if you don't have this kind of digitalization, you are not interesting to external actors. Yeah? So if there is no system, you cannot hack it. Yeah? But if there is a system in place, there are plenty of actors that would like to hack it and get a benefit of it. And that's why, so everything is moving on parallel. Like I said, that currently we are working on this digital bridge, which is based on a security technology, like Estonia's X-Road. So this is on the digital identity. So those are really the backbones. So we're trying both to protect the infrastructure. For example, at eMID, we are investing around $16 million on this infrastructure. Half of that is already done. Half of that will be done like in the coming 6 months. Only this amount of money to build a trust infrastructure for digital identity and electronic signature. And then we're building it the same between the public sector and the private sector. So, and we are also learning from the best. Yeah. So I think that this is path to success.
And about the consent, I still want to know, it's default consent or explicit?
Oh, sorry for that. Consent is an explicit consent.
Explicit, okay.
So it will pop up to your screen. So State Revenue Service wants to access this data. And we will also show the data, for example. This is this amount, this is that amount, etc. Do you want to edit it, or you want it send it right away? And then you sign with electronic signature, and it flies. So this is the process that is in a discussion and agreed. And after this, we will have a meeting in the central bank at 2 p.m. to finalize
great,
it. Yeah.
Great. So, Mr. Gevorkyan, once this system will be implemented, you will have the lower bound estimate of shadow economy. So, depending on who didn't give the consent, you can have something like a lower bound. So, colleagues.
If I may just
yes.
a short comment on the
yes.
pre-filing and the income tax declaration. Basically, it's not really about shadow economy, to be honest, because the information that is being, for instance, sent from the bank to the State Revenue Committee that is currently being discussed, it's already taxed. So we have collected all those taxes. It's not even about that. It's just to be able to provide better service to our citizens so that they won't have to check their bank account and then see their deposits, the interest, and then manually file it into the filing system. Because the taxes have already been paid, we are not worried about that. It's just that infrastructure through which this information can be automatically filed in. So it's really about customer service and not about shadow economy or additional administrative efforts.
Thank you. So we have a few minutes left. If you have some concluding comments, remarks, please feel free. Colleagues.
We always have a lot of things to say, but maybe questions from the audience?
I don't know whether my reglement allows me to take questions from the audience. 2 questions. Please.
Hello, Ferdinand from Central Bank of Armenia. So the biggest problem of digitalization and the changes probably for a lot of structures are HR changes and our optimizations, huge amount of optimizations. So what I would like to ask my colleagues from State Revenue Committee and Ministry of Finance, how are you dealing with these problems? Because government services are services also, and the cost of services are taxed from taxpayers. So what are you doing in order to reduce the cost of services for your customers, the public, not to increase it by digitalization, by keeping the old processes and making additional new digitalized ones, which are pretty costly?
Thank you. Excellent question. So we don't want digital if it is going to cost more than we pay now, just for your information.
Yeah, for that not to cost more means you need more professionals in the public service. More professionals, yeah, you can say that they work for the idea, they just love their country, and all of the other fairy tales and unicorns that we like to tell ourselves. That usually, in our understanding, a civil servant is something like a person in a monastery that lives on bread and water and prays to the civil society. The difference is that, yeah, you need professionals. Yes, there will be less professionals. You don't need 20 of them. You need maybe 5. But they really need to be high level to properly design, because now it's not about routine. And in the future, I think tax service is already going in that direction. But the Ministry of Finance and everybody else needs to go in that direction. That means a change in law on civil service and a change in what a civil servant is. Because whenever we see that a civil servant is receiving a high wage, horrible, he's eating our bread, he's taking the bread from the mouth of my newborn child and basically killing the child, and that's a huge problem. We need to make sure that civil service is much more professional. We need less civil servants, and that's a good thing, but they need to be properly remunerated. Otherwise, you will get a higher cost of service. What will happen? We will be dependent on vendors much more. You will not be asking me, hey, why is your e-procurement system not working? And my answer will be, well, okay, dear vendor, please make it work. The vendor will say, okay, 15% more. If I don't have capacity to understand whether the vendor is telling the truth or not, I'll say, probably I should agree, because the risk on the other side is that the system is not working. So here, a huge change is needed in what we're actually demanding from the civil servant. We don't need to stop demanding that, oh, you need to earn less wage and we don't care about how effective you are. We need to ask them, okay, how educated you are? Do you know your stuff? And then you will be properly remunerated. So this is one of the key things that can create additional burden on the budget, that can create that in the short run we will have a short increase of relative wages towards the general spending of the government, but in the long run, through digitalization and through use of AIs, we will get to a much more efficient government. So it is kind of investment in the long future. More consider it like sunk cost. And if we consider a more, let's say, sillier direction of what do we do with the people that are right now in the civil service, yes, there is a huge institutional resistance, but there are ways, let's say, to retain people as institutional memory, introduce changes, and then slowly phase them out. That is the most, let's say, resistant-less process, but it is very expensive. It means that you will have a lot of civil servants receiving their basic wage and basically not getting any work done, probably. But I think the experience of SRC will be much more interesting here.
I briefly touched upon the HR processes that we are going through. The HR reform is a cornerstone of reforming the State Revenue Committee. A month ago probably, we had a leadership meeting during which we were trying to bifurcate our new vision and mission. And basically, through rounds of discussion, the two things that stood out is, first, we want professional service, meaning the quality of the professionals should increase, and we should hire consistently the top of the market, meaning the newcomers that come to our service should be hired at the top of the market and not at the mid or bottom of the market. That's very critical. And this means that the service, for instance, state revenue service, as an employer, should become much more interesting to a younger generation, so that the younger generation, the top students that graduate, they are interested to join our service. And for that, we need to do multiple things, from change of institutional setup, environment, office space, to salaries, and the way we compensate basically our staff. That's part of it. And the second part is, of course, the technological changes that would force us to make those changes anyway, because when AI introduction comes, and it's already on the way in State Revenue Committee, we won't need the classical auditor that we had in State Revenue Committee, let's say 10 years ago, already now, because the tools that are available make this work much more efficient, and we need people really understanding the tools, understanding how to use those tools, and doing the audit through those tools. The ones who understand and use it would be much more efficient than any our traditional, let's say, auditor that with large teams used to visit the businesses and do their on-site audits, etc. So basically, the technological change would force us to face this reality anyway, but we prefer to be one step ahead if possible. And we have started those investments already last year, and we are continuing the course of action. Hopefully, we will get there in a couple of years' time with full digitized HR system, KPI system, and decent remuneration for our employees.
Thank you. Thank you very much, colleagues. So I personally learned a lot. Thank you for illuminating me on various topics. I hope that the audience was also interested in what we were discussing. Thank you very much, and I wish you all good continuation of the conference. Thank you.
Vardan, thank you for the great moderation, and to our gentlemen for this great conversation. We learned indeed a lot. And by the way, it's the time to get certificates. We know that you haven't received certificates for years, so this would be some nice surprise coming to you. I think we can also give another big round of applause to our gentlemen for this important discussion. Thank you very much. And now I invite you for a group photo, if possible, right in the center. And here is our photographer. He's going to take a photo of you. And we can continue clap.